Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Craig Adams from CBS 6 WRGB TV in Albany, New York, the world's very first television station. You're watching NAB Show Live.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat. Here's your host, Ryan Salazar.
Hi, this is Ryan Salazar of Broadcast Beat Magazine and NAB Show Live. Today, our discussion is on post-production workflow. We've got some very special guests with us. Michael Combs, we go way back. How you doing, sir?
Very good. Good to see you, man.
All right, so Michael is from Key Code Media. He's the Director of Technology. Wonderful to have you. We've also have David, I hope I pronounce this properly, sir, Kalantwani?
Close enough.
Okay, all right. And then we've got a good friend of mine as well. Oh, David's from Avid, actually. Sam Bagash from Axel Video. We know you well as well. Very well.
Good to see you.
All right, great to have you guys. So the whole discussion is to talk about post-production workflow, and that's my background. I've been in this industry since I was about 12 years old, which sounds kind of crazy.
So about 5 years now?
Yeah, right, about 5 years. And so, so post-production workflow, you know, first you're creating the assets, then you have to manage those assets. So in the management of those assets is kind of where we come in as engineers and software companies. So the management of those assets, you've got storage. So you've got asset management. That's where Sam and Avid comes in as well, David. And then you have the delivery eventually. So you're going to deliver it to Extreme Reach or one of the delivery methods. So let's talk about that a little bit, guys. Michael, you are Director of Technology at Key Code Media, Los Angeles.
Indeed.
And talk about how you guys manage those assets. Think about folder structures and labeling files, that sort of thing.
Well, that's almost secondary, because when the media is created, that's when the real logging takes place.
That's true.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
we have companies like Red who are like, great, we're going to put a ton of metadata in the file name, so at the very least you have some semblance of metadata. But now we're getting to a point where the camera folks and the assistant camera folks and the DITs are expected to be inserting this metadata that you then can track through, not only for post-production, but for marketing afterwards, right? So they can tag these different terms and then be able to monetize it later without paying someone to then go and retroactively create those.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a lot of shooters these days, they don't take sheets. That's the old school thing, but it really is it's metadata in these days. And Sam, could you talk a little bit about the management of assets?
Sure. So, what we see a lot is that people have way more assets than they have kind of a clue about what to do with it all. And the gap there is the metadata. So the cameras can generate a certain amount, the on-set people can generate a certain amount, and then hopefully you have some, assistant editors or producers that can help out the editing team. Because in the old days, you'd have shooting ratios of 2 or 3 to 1, and now on some of these shows, it's like 50 to 1. So there's so much more footage, and it's like this deluge. So they got to deal with it somehow. And obviously, what we try and do is provide better tools for managing that. But it's always a challenge, because every time you think you've got a handle on it, there's a new camera format or new ways of shooting. And what we keep hearing is that people go out, expecting to shoot with maybe a few fixed cameras, and then someone whips out a GoPro, someone has an iPhone. It's like, wait, I can get a great angle over here. And then you come back and you've got footage from, different devices, different resolutions and frame rates that you have to kind of somehow bring it all together. It's a lot.
Broadcast Beat, we cover all the shows worldwide.
Yeah.
NAB Show, Broadcast Asia, IBC is a big one, and
Yeah.
NAB Show New York, love that show.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of video assets to manage. So I'm in the same boat as everybody else in the post industry for this. So, we've got, we did about 500 videos in 2015. And I'm sure we're going to do at least 1,000 this year. So we actually use Axel for our asset management. We love it, and it's a big deal to label this stuff properly. I've seen too many guys have a folder and have another folder, and it's on a desktop, and it's not on a shared storage somewhere, whether it's Fiber Channel or Gigi storage or whatever.
Right.
You know what? Why don't you go ahead and talk about the physical storage of it a little bit? Storing assets.
Well, that's a loaded question, because like there wasn't enough storage options already.
Exactly.
Right? We didn't really have 1,001 different kinds of hard drives. Now we've got SSD. Now we've got flash memory. Oh, we've got ODA now, right? Optical disc, and of course we have LTO, which historically was on the front end and the back end, but not in the middle. And now we're seeing it creep into post in terms of tier 2. So there are an immense amount of decisions, but what it comes down to is no one's deleting anything. So it's not like the problem is going to go away. People just keep amassing things. And so the strategy is pick the right storage solution that has the speed you need because capacity is just growing.
Yeah, and you know, think about it. There's a lot of guys in post that have a bad habit of just hard drives. They're distributing hard drives, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen hard drives fail that aren't backed up or aren't labeled properly, and there's a stack of 20 drives in the room and you're not sure where the power supply is and all that jazz.
And Sam, actually, Sam brought up something very interesting, and that's the immense amount of camera cards, the immense amount of media, and a lot of the larger facilities are homogenizing things. Instead of doing that, you know, I'll pay later, I just want to edit now and get immediate gratification and take all these raw formats,
Right.
Let's flip everything to a house codec. Right? And that speaks directly to storage because now we need that much more storage for camera originals and your transcoded copies.
Okay, David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely all about the metadata, and I think one of the angles that we look at too is the repurposing of content. So all the metadata management you do up front, all the monetization attempts that you put in while you're managing your content as it's being shot on set, as metadata is being actually, as you're flipping, as you're adding metadata on set, as you're doing it through the process. One of the things I think Avid does very well is we also realize there's another whole cycle of production that comes after. A lot of people want to repurpose content, they want to deliver it to different devices, to tablets, to broadcasting it, and then they want to recall that from archive and then use it again for another purpose. So,
Right, and then you think nearline storage. There's so many different facets of this whole thing.
That's right.
So, all right, let's talk about the benefits of, obviously they're pretty obvious though, the benefits of shared storage. So, you know, you've got I don't know, Facilis Terablock, for example, and it's on Fiber Channel, or you've got an Avid.
Or you have Avid Nexus.
We have an Avid Nexus. There we
What
go.
is
Sorry,
that
guys.
called again?
It's called Avid Nexus.
Nexus.
Avid
Got it.
Nexus. Okay, so you have an Avid Nexus, and it's shared storage amongst I don't know, 30 editors and some visual effects artists, maybe some animators, versus the drives. So you probably see this all the time. You're working on shared storage, I'm sure.
Completely. That's the conversation I have more often than not. And it boils down to in a collaborative workflow, and I have to choose my words carefully here, what does collaboration mean to you and your team? Does it mean that you and 3 other editors are editing the same project at the same time with the same media? Boom, we're going Avid and Nexus. If we're looking at something like Premiere, okay, that opens things up. Now we're talking Adobe Anywhere, and then your shared storage de jure on there. So it really goes to exactly what the workflow would be for that particular project, and then going downwind from there. It also goes down to the codec issue, right?
Oh, yeah.
Are people working with 4K DPX? Okay, you're not doing single gigabit Ethernet, right? You're doing
Right.
fiber, you're doing 10 gig, you're doing something a little bit more robust, and so all that comes into play when we're choosing a shared storage solution.
I'm personally kind of hooked on ProRes myself, but
Aren't you scared? With the announcement, with killing QuickTime on Windows, and
oh
what's gonna
yeah,
happen with-
of course, yeah. I'm pretty much a Mac house for the most part, but yeah, that does make me nervous. So, all right, so the asset management, Sam. Talk about how your software works, proxies, and all that.
Sure. Well, basically what we do is we kind of watch the storage, and we work with all the leading storage vendors, including Avid, with the Nexus products. So essentially, we watch what's on the storage, we create a database of all the files that are on that storage, and then we present that in a browser view that you can access from your laptop, from a mobile device, and we even are starting to do connections to editing tools where there's a tighter link and you can immediately bring things into your timeline, for instance. So essentially, it's just watching. It's not trying to do too much. There are more powerful media management systems that Michael and Dave would be happy to talk to you about, but ours really tries to do the least possible and just give you that view so that you can search and tag and subclick.
So are you based for like a smaller facility, smaller to medium size?
Typically smaller, medium size, even if it's in a larger organization. The reality is if you've got a lot more editors, you're going to want to look at something more like Avid's Interplay products and Media Central
Sure.
than you will with our product.
And so with that said, let's talk about that a little bit, David.
Yeah, sure, and that's, Sam is right. Our products, Interplay, Media Central, they do scale small to large. Sam has a great product that works very well in small environments, medium environments, but some of our clients, they have millions and millions of assets that need to be managed. They have hundreds and hundreds of clients connected at one time to Nexus Storage and to Media Central. And so you need to have the ability to be able to find content quickly, search across multiple pools of storage or even asset management systems, and then use that quickly in your production. So that's one of the great benefits of Media Central, where it makes content creators have the access they need to the content they need right away. And if there's a news organization that has 300 editors at one time pounding on content, searching for content, acquiring content, that's really the power of our asset management system.
Okay, so now let's think back to the beginning of the process again, Michael, and you probably have the most experience with this, I think. So when you get stuff from footage from, well, first you have someone do a shoot, right? Or or somebody does the shoot. A company goes out, whatever. So when the footage comes into the facility, what do you guys do? Do you immediately, first you tell the shooter, look, we've got to have ABC codec, whatever codec it may be. What if the guys don't follow procedure? I've had that problem many times. So how do you handle that?
Well, it all goes to what paradigm we're talking about. Are we talking about unscripted? Are we talking about feature film? Are we talking about documentaries? I mean, each have their own paradigm. If we look at where we're seeing the most amount of content, like the numbers which are astounding, Deadliest Catch, 30,000 hours of footage, right? That kind of thing, right? A majority of stuff is standardized into a number of codecs, right? And the codec, you're expected to come in with the footage in those codecs, either on LTO or a hard drive, right? There are a lot of facilities that we deal with that say, you know what, whatever we get in, it's hitting our transcoder, we're flipping everything. We're transcoding everything down to a very low-res codec, which I have an issue with.
A proxy type of
proxy,
yeah.
But it looks like shite. It looks horrible, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why is because no one wants to buy storage.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going, because I was wondering if you guys force everything to a specific format before, kind of like radio stations, television stations. They'll work in MPEG formats. So maybe it's 18 megs per second, an MBPS file. 18 megs per second on all the 30-second spots that come in, because it's a lot of storage.
Right.
They have to handle thousands of spots at the station level. Do you do the same sort of thing then?
There are recommendations. There's I'm not going to name the show, but a show that is #1 in the ratings, and their house codec is HDV. Still, 2016
Wow.
HDV, not 2006, 2016. There are other facilities that say, you know what, whatever we get in, even if it's GoPro, even if it's cell phone footage, we're flipping to ProRes. Right? So it all goes to what your budget will handle in terms of a codec, and also what's the baseline for quality. If you're just going to web at 720, XDCAM all day long.
Okay.
Right? But if you're releasing for broadcast, it's got to be something a little bit higher caliber.
Okay, and then this is kind of off the discussion a little bit, but it still is a really important thing, frame rates. So I've seen, and this is kind of crazy, but I've seen shoots get done in, shot in 29.97, and then you've got another guy that shot something in 23.976 at the same time in the same shoot.
Oh, that's aesthetic.
Yeah.
That's an aesthetic.
Right. No, what I
But
mean
that
is
happens.
you've got
I know.
two different cameras at two different rates. And how do you guys handle that sort of thing?
It's traditionally whatever the majority of your footage is at, or whatever you're releasing at,
So-
and then we use a transcoder to flip it to that frame rate.
Potentially at
because a lot of the NLEs
Right.
don't do as good of a job as a third-party transcoder. Yeah. Although Symphony with Nitrous, with the old Nitrous DX, did it fantastically. Yeah.
So transcoding and automation tools. Any suggestions, guys?
Oh boy.
Well,
there's-
Avid, I'm sure, has got all sorts
Yeah,
of stuff.
we certainly have a bunch of transcoding tools that are built into our asset management system. We also have, we have a lot of ways for third parties like Telestream to plug into our Media Central platform that allow that to interact seamlessly with Interplay Media Central. There's a whole bunch of options out there. I know Chronology is talking about an encoder that's a transcoding product. They're announcing at the show. There's simple things like Sorensen at the software level that we actually work very closely with. I think.
Well,
what
one of the
else out
things that
there?
I'm a huge fan of is automation, not only as it pertains to transcoding, but asset management. I mean, and I'm not belittling anyone's product, but searching for things, here's a term, okay, it matches a metadata field, right? But being able to automate, hey,
Oh, sure.
I want this to be proxy to be made, I want it to be written to LTO, delete the hard copy, send me an email, then aspire it out to a client, right? With
Right.
one mouse click, so now you spend your time creating as opposed to monkey media managing.
And logging that you
Right?
actually did it. or-
Right,
yeah.
right. Now, the transcoding and the automation, we're talking about, oh, I see black bars on the side of this file. You must have encoded 16.9 and a 4.3. Let me go back and redo that.
Right.
Oh, I see a 1K tone here. Oh, I better go back and chop off the heads on that because there's a slate there. Right?
Right.
So automated transcoding, intelligent transcoding, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's true. And we have a product media director that does similar types of transcoding too. But I get your point. Yeah.
So now, all right. So at the end of the project, you've got to back this stuff up. I know a lot of folks that just keep the stuff online for a long time. I have a bad habit of doing that myself because it's just you want to access it if you need it really quickly. So there's LTO, of course, and the other methods you guys want to chat about, and getting that stuff offline. A lot of the asset management systems these days, and Sam, I'm not sure if yours does that, can automatically, after a certain amount of time or whatever, based on whatever sort of rule, can do that, right?
Yeah, ours actually tries to keep that, again, that sort of basic level, so we make it user-driven.
Right.
We don't do automatic file aging where we push things off, but we do let you archive an entire folder or a set of projects, for instance. I think the big challenge with archiving is right now, it's a lot more diverse than it used to be. So you have LTO, and the new LTO 7 format is awesome. I mean, IBM drives, basically 6 or more terabytes on a single tape. But at the same time, they got to compete with the cloud storage offerings, which are dropping really rapidly in cost. It used to be the S3 was kind of a joke for this sort of work, but every year the cost keeps getting cut in half. So you've got tape, you've got cloud, and you've also got disk, because disk is also stepping it up. You have 8 and 10 terabyte drives. You can build very cost-effective RAID and NAS volumes. So there's a lot better choices than there used to be for high-capacity archiving.
Any thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about automation and recall and searchability, right? So there's plenty of companies out there that interact with ISIS and Nexus storage. Storage DNA comes to mind. And they're just really good at archiving and having an automated process. I think, one of the, it's interesting, we're talking about post-production here, but I think you're kind of seeing this merging of technology where that would traditionally, where the amount of content that's created for news is just so enormous, and then the recall of that and the searchability of it, we're actually seeing that trend. I think it's interesting, we're talking about that in post-production too, right? Where it goes back to what I was talking about before, where you're constantly seeing people repurposing content, or it has to be redistributed to different markets. There's movies that get made on Media Composer that have thousands of different translations. There's an airplane version, there's a Chinese version, there's an American. It just goes on and on and on. And that type of workflow is so new and so different. And it's really the merging of sort of post-production workflows and news workflows, which is why so much content that's being created has to be archived off, has to be searched. You have to have a lot of power behind how you're managing all that content. So it's a good conversation to have, and I really think it's interesting in a post-production conversation how we're talking about retrieval of archive to LTO, retrieval, searchability. Those are all generally news and broadcast like topics, but very relevant.
So then you think about, and Sam, you were talking about the cloud a minute ago, and I could go right off and just ask the manufacturers, but I'm really curious from the user. I'm a user too. How feasible? I guess it depends on the part of the process and what you're doing to integrate the cloud with your facility. For what we do, I think broadcast speed, I think it would be fine to, for our little shoots, we do 3-minute shoots at a bunch of booths at a show, that kind of thing. But when you guys are working on TV shows or whatnot, how does that you've got massive amounts of files to put that up to the cloud, maybe when the whole thing's finished.
It's LTO. I
mean,
cloud is certainly an option, but we don't have a great bandwidth here in the United States, right? And to manage that amount of content, a lot of folks are doing colo, right? Well, they'll put it on LTO and ship it elsewhere, and then do a delta sync of all the changes, because that's incremental as opposed to one big dump,
right?
But LTO, traditionally, we're talking Spectra robots, we're talking LTO 7. As you mentioned, 300 megs a second, over 6 terabytes of tape. The only problem you get with LTO is every 2 or 3 years, there's a new format, and after 2 generations, you can't read that 3rd generation. So now every couple of years, you're migrating to a newer format. But if we look at the cost associated, LTO over 4 years, and I say 4 years because you don't buy cloud storage, right? You rent it. Right. So after 4 years, 80% of your hard spinning disks are still spinning. If we average out that cost, LTO is still the cheapest option compared to.
Well, it's a recurring cost. It's a growing cost.
Right.
Because the larger you exactly.
Right. But if you talk spinning disk versus SSD versus cloud, LTO still comes out as cheaper in the long run.
Okay. All right. So we have about 3 minutes left in this segment, and I wanted to chat about the delivery stuff. So it kind of goes back to transcoding. You've got a flip factory. which is an older system, or you've got a Vantage, which is a newer system. You've got an Avid system that does transcoding to deliver those, the files. So you've got all your production process. You're at the end. How do you deliver? How do you guys deliver?
Vantage is usually the go-to solution because it's extensible XML. It understands a lot of asset management systems like Avid, understands NLEs and codecs.
Right.
Also, Route 6 by Content Agent. That's a really good solution for delivering those end deliverables.
Okay, would you mind chatting about that, David?
Yeah, we have some products, Airspeed, and then there's a whole bunch of products on our new acquisition, ORAD, that happened last year. They have different playout servers. There's also, we have on the broadcast side, and this is a post discussion, we have Media Distribute, which allows you to take multiple formats and output them at the same time to different delivery mechanisms. So yeah, there's a lot of options out there.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to be back in just a few minutes after this break. But just a quick note, I'm going to be chatting with Chuck Lorre at about 2 p.m. today from a remote location back to here. So that's going to be quite an exciting discussion. We spoke with Bob Woodruff earlier today from ABC News. That was really, really fun. He's a cool guy. We will see you in just a minute. Again, don't forget to check out Broadcast Beat's YouTube page, youtube.com/BroadcastBeat. We're on Twitter at BroadcastBeat, as well as Instagram at BroadcastBeat. And of course, we're broadcasting live here at NABshow.com and BroadcastBeat.com. We'll see you in a minute.
Hey, this is a cat named Mo, on-air personality from 102.5 The Bone, Tampa, Florida, and you are watching NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Ryan Salazar here with Broadcast Beat and NAB Show Live with NAB Show coverage. So we're talking today about cloud innovations and production workflow. We've got some very special guests. Ken Yaz, how you doing, sir?
Very good, Ryan. How are you?
Good. So talk about WCP Media and what you guys do.
WCP Media Services is a platform as a service, which is a little bit beyond a software as a service. We group together some best-of-breed technologies to provide content owners, those who have the rights to the content, the ability to manage, transcode, market, and move content from one location to another over IP. So instead of the movement of projects via physical media or via satellite, we provide them an on-demand, easy-to-use alternative to that. And for content producers who have in the past relied on ad hoc solutions, something like Dropbox or Hightail, something along those lines, which are perfectly acceptable, for them to move into a different category, to start moving large volumes of content, they need a more managed approach, a content management system and a variety of other tools to actually get the content from A to B securely. And we provide that through the cloud.
Okay. Ron Earwood from Synesys. I know you guys very well. We're in Fort Lauderdale, as most of you guys know. Ron and his folks, well, you guys are based in several locations.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Main office is in Houston. We have an office in Dallas, Vancouver, Toronto, New York, Chicago,
Miami.
Atlanta, Miami. We're all over.
Yeah, so talk about what Synesys does.
We're a high-end integrator. We basically will do best of breed. And best of breed for everyone isn't the same thing necessarily. Everybody has their own idea of what works for them. We have high-end broadcasters with lots of machines, lots of storage. I'm kind of the SAN specialist, so I'm
Sure.
more on the storage side. But we do from end to end, so it's all the way to ingest to archive.
Excellent. Yeah, and I know some companies you work with. I'm not sure I can say them, but they're really large in
Absolutely.
the sporting industry. Very impressive stuff. Jeff Greenwald, HGST. How you doing, sir?
Great.
Welcome to NAB Show.
Nice to be here on
right.
day one, ground zero.
So talk about what you guys do, HGST.
Well, HGST, aside from being the world's largest storage company, we have 100,000 employees.
Wow.
We ship 1 million disk drives per day. We're integrating SanDisk, a company that is flash. We actually invented the disk drive in 1955. Our company is targeting media and entertainment, the studios, the post houses, production companies, CDNs, OTTs, cloud companies, everybody who's involved in media, file delivery, that they have the hardest challenges They have the most ridiculous cost structures that we have to get under.
Right.
The challenges they have, that's really our business. And we intend to stay and to take a leadership role with technology innovation.
Okay. So you'll know this the most, Ron. Or well, this is kind of coming from the integrator portion. Why is shared storage so important to production workflow?
The way that things are put together these days, I mean, it's all over. We have some customers who have sites in Chicago, Nashville, Dallas, and they're sharing media in between those things for segments they're doing. And to be able to put together something that they can immediately work on that stuff together in multiple locations, as well as in their own facility. I mean, shared storage came back into the realm about the 2000 time frame, and it's just grown since then. I mean, we have sites that have 4 petabytes of storage and 500 users that are all sharing that same storage. It's all one pile of storage. It's all one infrastructure and fabric for those clients. And you have ingest going on and editing and transcoding and producing deliverables at the back end, all at the same time on the shared storage.
Right, you don't want to worry about duplicate files and that sort of stuff. So Jeff, if you could talk about that as well.
Sure, media workflows are dramatically transforming today because of 3 things. Because of number 1, the cloud and collaboration. Number 2, because of cost structure. And thirdly, because of globalization. Today, you don't see movies or episodic programs or series. You don't see them simply happening in West LA. You see them production happening in multiple countries, post-work, editing happening in London. Then there's often subtitling, language changes, etc., bannering happening in New York and Toronto and India. And then finally, there's content franchising and syndication that happens in multiple countries as well. This is a global world, and media workflows change because of this and because of the goal to monetize that content.
All right, so Ken, if you could talk about it, because you guys come from the cloud side of things.
One thing we've noticed is that in a shared storage environment, especially among some of the clients that we appeal to, who are often at a small or medium level in terms of production and post-production and content ownership, they fill up their local storage really quickly.
Oh yeah.
If it's a finishing environment, they need that storage for works in progress, and then they need to move the completed work to the content owner or to the broadcaster, which means a cloud environment makes all the sense in the world for them. In addition to which, they need to move it quickly and securely. So we've built in an accelerated file transfer system from 2 different perspectives that allow them to offload a great deal of content that's either almost finished or actually completed and approved to the cloud. Vitally important.
Yeah, what's really interesting is there are some really amazing file transfer technologies now.
Indeed.
Not that were necessarily built for the cloud, but I'm sure they get utilized with your solutions.
Correct, because they may have come from a completely different discipline, but with content management as a layer on top of that file transfer capability, it makes all the sense in the world to start using it in a B2B environment where you're dealing with high value content and a large volume of it.
Okay, now types of disks when you're working on, you guys dealing with storage all the time, depending on, if it's that sporting company I can think of, but I'm not sure I can say the name. Yeah. Do they work on solid state or do they work on spinning disk?
I mean, I'm working with customers I worked with 20 years ago, okay? And 20 years ago, things were real difficult to get to happen, right? You get 2 streams of 2K, I have customers who have now moved to solid state disks, and they turn that 2 streams of real time into 13 streams of real time overnight, and they're thrilled. I mean, we have new products coming out today, that are, instead of being fiber channel based, they're iSCSI based. But they're block level SAN storage, just like fiber channel was. And you get to utilize the new networks of 40 gigs. So now you've got an iSCSI product that's network type of attached rather than having to put it in a fiber channel infrastructure. and you get the same benefits. You're running at the same speeds. You're running the same kind of stream counts. On a storage, that's a lot more economical for the lower end guy, right?
Right. And Jeff, go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, for those of you that saw Tom Cruise in the Minority Report of a number of years ago, do you remember how storage was actually, where was it? It was in glass. Very exciting. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. We just announced a disk drive that it has helium in it, not air.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
helium? Because you can put more dense data in and you can fly heads at 1/6 the weight of air. There is some tremendous technology out there. You have not yet seen the best in the storage industry.
That's unbelievable.
That's
So Ken, let's talk about the cloud a little bit more. If you could go in a little more in depth about what you guys do.
If, for example, you have, and we find this a lot with our clients, it's unfortunate, but they still maintain a fair amount of their content on hard media, sometimes even on videotape. They want to monetize it to a greater extent than they're currently doing it. We have to advise them on how to move it into the digital domain, and we have to provide them the ability to organize it and transmit it quickly, especially if they make a sale. Plus, we have to be in a position where the disks that are holding this content are absolutely reliable, and that there is disaster recovery built in as well. So the data center that we work with, populated largely with Western Digital and HEST drives, and the Mirror data center, which is at a separate location, have to pass rigorous security standards. So that's really important to us. And as a result, we can deliver to our clients the kind of reliability that they wouldn't necessarily be able to get in a different environment, plus encryption as well. But the main issue is, how do I, once it's been digitized, how do I best organize it so that I can find it?
Oh, sure.
And we have
assets. Yeah.
So our content management system is a flat management system, not unlike what you'd see in iTunes, but it allows you instant access to content because it's so searchable. The metadata tagging that goes on within the system, both automatic and manual, allows for instant retrieval of content. It's really quite a remarkable system in the sense that, it's bringing together components that you can find in separate systems, putting them all in one place and making them easy to access.
Okay, so none of you guys are from Adobe, but I'm kind of curious, and Ron, you as well. It is kind of a hot topic here at the show right now, Adobe Anywhere file storage. Anyone want to talk about that?
I will. There's
Yeah.
the cloud workflow storage as well as compute is happening globally. We respect and think that Adobe Cloud as a service is wonderful. Certainly, if you want to compute and move files and edit using Adobe. But this is a transformation in the industry. Where does work happen? Where does storage live? Who do you collaborate with? What are the security traps to keep the bad guys out and to share the good files with who? All of these solutions all of these access issues have to be solved. And the most important part of that is, when do you move the data to the application, and or conversely, when do you move the application to the storage? And there are multiple ways of solving that problem. And I think you'll see choices for the studios, and that's the most important part.
Right now, what Adobe is doing, and it's almost a first-generation product, is incorporating some of the collaborative workflows into the actual editing system itself in an effort to continue to promote Premiere as a top-tier editing system, which they're doing very successfully.
Oh, sure.
However, the collaboration is frequently happening at a low-resolution level. And what we bring to the table is the ability to take that finished product, multiple audio tracks frequently, identify what those tracks are and what the video is, both in terms of metadata and any kind of manual entry of information concerning storyline, version, you name it, and deliver those finished files to the end user. Orders of magnitude different than what is happening in, let's say, a post-production, low-resolution, collaborative environment. But I applaud them for trying to bring together a group of people within an editing system. I don't know how the editor feels about that. He's got a lot of chefs in the kitchen all of a sudden.
Sure.
But it is happening virtually, and that's what Adobe and frankly, their competition Avid is bringing to the table.
Okay, so now in the first half of our hour, we talked a little bit about managing the assets. what do you do when you need to offload storage? And in an ideal world, you just keep adding storage. That's what I would love to do. But you have to get rid of that stuff eventually. Well, not get rid of it, but you have to put it somewhere. You have to put it somewhere safely, especially if you're dealing like in a government environment, anything really, you know, motion pictures, whatever. Yep. Ron, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, all the high-end customers that we have are pretty much these days still on LTO. And they're moving along. That, you know, a lot of them had LTO 4 and now they've moved to 6, and some of them are even going to 7 already. I think in the first segment it was talked about how quickly those tape formats get bypassed. And it's true, it's been that way forever. I can remember when Sony 8mm came out and people said, this is the format to end all formats.
Oh, it's never the case. Hey, Jeff, go ahead.
Ryan, what if there were a new technology that meant you never ever had to delete those files, but you could preserve them for, say, the next 100 years?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we have a technology called object storage, which does exactly that. And our paper last year, which we delivered at SMPTE, wrote about how object storage and archival storage actually enables the preservation of video files for the next 100 years at cents per terabyte. Pretty exciting, and those technologies are here today. This is not coming in the future. Those alternatives to RAID 5 and RAID 6 rebuild and mirroring and backup and snapshotting, there are alternatives with products like our Active Archive or object storage, which enables studios to not have to delete files, so you can remonetize feature films from 30 years ago, which, by the way, is a whole industry in and of itself today.
Oh, sure.
So those technologies are here today, and companies and studios and broadcasters are taking advantage of those today.
Wow, so privacy and security.
Yeah.
You know, especially in the motion picture industry, I know a lot of folks at the studios in Los Angeles. How are they protecting that? I'm sure, Ken, you're dealing with this, especially being in the cloud. That's a hot topic.
It's one of the hottest topics, especially what happened last year.
Yep.
And I think you have to look at security at a number of different levels. Acquisition, delivery of that set of master files, raw product, to the editing room. From there, up into the cloud for storage. So there's at least 2 to 3 different places where you're vulnerable. And encryption eliminates some of that, but also the kind of ratings that we have at the data center also prevent unauthorized entry. But there are still vulnerabilities, and it's not easy to protect your content. We've been very lucky so far. I also want to point out that raw data, by the way, that's coming out of the camera that's being collected on set and delivered needs to be transcoded and protected. And some of the transcoding systems that we're working with are offering now accelerated methods of transcoding this content. So you're not waiting 2 days to get your dailies, you're getting them the next day.
Oh, right.
But keeping them in the cloud rather than putting them on a drive and sending them via FedEx or something like that.
Right.
But, you know, there are still security challenges and there are still storage challenges coming off the set.
So Jeff, it's, you know, actual physical, well, that's actual physical storage,
Yes,
it's just
indeed.
somewhere else. But storage in your facility, security is a little bit different.
Not really. I think that the whole aspect of digital rights management, digital watermarking, access control, personalization of keys to different files, this is a critical element that will damage the most important thing that studios and post houses have, and that's their reputation. As Sony unfortunately found out with the Korea issue of, a year and a half ago, security can put you out of business if you don't solve that. And cloud companies like WCP and many of our customers who put in cloud infrastructure, that is job one.
Yep.
They gotta solve that, or else they don't get a chance to swing at the plate the second time around. Very few companies are able to come back as Sony has from this. And so the security elements are actually complicated because of the cloud. Instead of it being inside your facility, in your data center with the lock and key, it's somehow out there accessible using the internet. And there were some interesting court cases in the United States, the most recent one being Microsoft suing the Justice Department for access and letting people know if the government, the U.S. government, is looking at you and your files and your information. So this unfortunate security, as it's really is at its infancy, and I think there's opportunities for companies to step up and develop new solutions in and of this space, and we want to contribute in that area as well.
And Ryan, if I may, with all the security features that we already have in place, when we respond to an RFP from a major studio, we have to go through yet another security check and perhaps an on-site audit to meet their unique specifications. So we're constantly dealing with security checks and security and background checks effectively on both the physical facility and our transmission capability.
Wow, and then you think of, and this might sound crazy to some folks, but motion picture is a very serious industry. There's a lot of money on the line, a lot that's at stake. There's a lot of folks are doing 2- and 3-factor authentication to get access to that physical storage as well, right? Are you guys seeing that?
Yes.
Yeah, the scariest thing is you could put in place all of the security elements, and then somebody walks into your facility, pulls out a mobile phone, and takes a video of the video that has been encrypted and locked and keyed, and then they walk out with their smartphone and put it on YouTube. So you could do everything right and still get it wrong. And so we have to kind of think through the strategy, the implementation, and where you share what. And that's really the key. Where do you share what information and with whom?
Okay, so now getting stuff off of the cloud and maybe bringing it back for, say, maybe there's a revision to some sort of a project. How do you guys deal with that?
Well, we deal with it through components built within our system from at least 2 of the accelerated transfer platforms, and you can have your choice for both uploading and downloading. Once again, secure and fast. So consequently, it is an uploading and downloading process. It is not a live stream with our environment. They do exist at low resolution for online collaborative work, but basically if you're moving 100 gigabytes worth of content, for somebody to approve it, you want to make it happen as fast as you can. We can do it, it's out of real time, but not grossly out of real time when you're using something like a Sparrow or Signia or File Catalog.
Right, and my understanding of how those types of services can, and maybe you can elaborate on a little bit, how they get files to and from locations is somehow they're picking that file apart and they're sending multiple streams,
They chunk
is that right?
it. Yeah, that's part of it.
Simultaneous multiple streams.
If you're doing like an HLS stream, it's going to chunk it, so if somebody hacks into a piece of it, they can't get the rest of it, they just get that piece, because it kind of reinvents itself every couple of minutes.
Okay. I got this is an interesting one too. So JMR Electronics has something called the Data Mover.
Yes.
And I know them very well. They've got this. You can, and I've never seen it do it, but I've heard about this. So you can have a device at one end, you can have the device at another end, and you had a revision to a major motion picture thing, and somehow it will know the changes in the files and transfer, something from London to Paris or wherever in lightning time, because it's only updating, like an integral backup sort of thing, if that makes any sense. So it's pretty cool. Go ahead.
Our Active Archive product has a feature where you do asynchronous replication across a geo-spread environment that does exactly that. So you update a file, and once that file is rewritten in 3 geos, which does have latency issues, so the cost for that is not free from a performance perspective. That file does a partial file restore of that element of the file, immediately available to all sites. So those kind of strategies both shrink time and shrink cost for the studio.
All right, so Ken, you deal with archival stuff all the time because you guys are the cloud and that's what it's meant to do.
Yes.
Do you guys deal with archival? I mean, as far as physically archiving stuff with a different system other than your storage, and although you mentioned
we have an Active
object.
Archive product that is an object storage that is designed for archiving very, very large, scalable files. It's about 5 petabytes per rack, which
That's
is
amazing.
the most dense storage in the planet that you can get.
Amazing. And so, Ron, what are you doing for archival? with clients?
A lot of the clients are still, like I said, going to LTO, but
Yeah.
a lot of the big manufacturers are looking at both cloud storage, both external and internal. We put in several sets of internal storage, and they're investigating. Typically, the guys who have multiple sites, so that they have multiple power grids, so that they're testing it out to make sure that their data's there for the long term.
Okay, so as a side thing, because we were talking about security, any thoughts on the whole Apple thing, the security and accessing stuff, the Apple Dropbox, things like that?
Yeah.
Maybe Amazon?
Security is going to be one of those things over the long haul that you're coming up against human nature, right?
Right.
And I don't know if anybody can predict how somebody wants to be evil. Truly.
Exactly. You're not going to stop human behavior. So
That's true.
Yeah. Well, Ken, you guys are certainly an interesting organization. Ron Earwood at Synesys and Jeff Greenwald. It was awesome having you guys here at the show, HGST. You guys are all at have a booth, right?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well, I will certainly see you at the 2016 NAB show. Just a couple other notes. Again, we're broadcasting live at nabshow.com, broadcastbeat.com. You can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/broadcastbeat, Twitter @broadcastbeat, and Instagram @broadcastbeat. Of course, nabshow.com has all sorts of coverage. We will see you in just a few minutes on the next show. Again, this is NAB Show Live.